So, my name's Rachel. This is Peter. Peter's with the Wisconsin Council of Churches, and I'm at Wisconsin Partners. We've actually worked together a few times previously, mostly through email, and run into each other maybe once or twice in person with pretty limited interaction. So, we are having a real one-on-one. This is
Yes.
completely unscripted. And I'm feeling a little shy about it. Peter said he's been too busy to have any feelings, but
Oh, I'm sure they'll come out.
the feelings will come out.
Yes.
Okay. So typically we would be meeting in person, but we're trying this over Zoom.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it's going to be happening that way these days.
Yeah, which makes it hard to read body language as well. So we're going to play with it and see how it goes. So, Peter.
Yes.
Tell me about your day. Do you want to just start from there and we'll kind of ease into it?
Yeah, I mean, these days, getting up later than I'm used to. I think that's kind of common for people. It just these days it gets harder even to remember what I was doing a couple hours ago, but I know part of it was trying to get caught up with the Supreme Court ruling last night. It's quite disappointing and kind of confusing for folks. Had the furnace or our air conditioning checked out for the year. Started reading a couple of magazine articles while I was waiting to get back into my office. So that's kind of been about it.
Just like several layers of complications.
Right. How about yourself?
So I live in a co-op, and my housemates and I have been doing a thing where we dress in a different color every day. And today's color is pink. So I'm wearing pink and I have pink earrings on. And so I spent a little bit of time this morning like collecting all the pink things and like putting them aside. And then I've also been just working on a grant through the Wisconsin Early Childhood Association for work this morning. So that's another one of the partners. But
Right.
I have also been sleeping in recently, and I don't know what it's about for you, but partially I think I've been experiencing higher anxiety than usual, or just like there are so many things that are up in the air these days that it can be hard to go to bed soundly and feel like I've completed something or feel like I'm at peace. Does that resonate with you?
Yes. I mean, with us, it's just kind of the routine with three of us and a dog. I just haven't been sort of the late night has been kind of my quiet time, personal time when I could do a little reading or, check personal emails. And so I've been going to bed fairly late and I've been trying to go to bed earlier, but then I do find that I don't sleep as well, or it takes me a while to fall asleep. And I wake up early when other people are stirring and, can't quite get back to sleep.
Yeah. Are you much more of an introvert than an extrovert?
Oh boy, yes.
So this has been really hard to be around people constantly, or are you all pretty good at navigating that together in your house?
It's got its challenges because we're all on just very different time schedules. Our daughter is at home. She's been helping with meal deliveries from a restaurant late at night. So she often comes home late at night and stays up and then goes to bed in the wee hours. And my wife tends to turn in very early in the evening and I'm sort of in the middle. So it can be disruptive, but it also, I think, gives each of us, a little extra space of our own. Yeah, I am an introvert. I think it helps. I think it makes it a little easier for me to ride this out.
Yeah.
Because I'm not out and about and doing more things just online and try to do a lot of thinking. I think this is just such a different time I find it interesting. People talk about the age of coronavirus,
Mm-hmm.
like it's a geological epoch. And, so there's just a lot of lots to think about. And I kind of enjoy ruminating on things.
Yeah.
Um,
Do
so
you
that's,
tend to be more rooted in thinking about sort of what's happening right now in a realistic sense? Are you like a really big picture thinker? Are you wondering what's going to happen in the future? Like, are you building analytical connections? Like, when you say you're thinking about it, what is that?
well, I guess I'm a big picture thinker.
Yeah.
That sounds pretentious, but I think that's why I was drawn to theology, is it gives me excuse to think about just about anything.
Yeah.
And I've always been interested in the way that theology and faith and faith traditions intersect with so-called secular life. Whether it's literature, whether it's science, whether it's politics. I've done a lot of stuff around the environment,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's kind of that, kind of seeing the depth dimension um, of ordinary things that kind of intrigues me, and which has kind of drawn me to to get a PhD in theology, and then but then to work in stuff relating to public policy and public life.
Yeah. I know you've done a lot with interfaith voting. I actually just sent you an email about that also.
Right. Yep.
Um, and like, yeah, like you said, like environmental justice work.
Hmm.
Um, do you know, like, was there a moment when you knew like theology was the path that you wanted to go on? Did it like hit you really hard, or did you ease into it more?
I probably eased into it more. I mean, in I think particularly in high school, I started reading a lot of C.S. Lewis,
I
and
did too. Well, I mean, I read like Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. That's it.
right, yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
read that, but I also liked his, unlike the friend that introduced me to the Narnia series, I was also
Yeah.
very interested in his theology, um, and so it was just kind of an interest to me, but I don't think it really became the idea of a career path until I got to college and was taking, religion courses, and decided to double major in English and religion, um,
Hmm.
and then kind of pursued that in graduate school. So
Did
I
you have like an instructor that you really liked or something? Like,
yeah, that was part of it.
yeah.
The introduction to theology course that I took in college, um, I really liked that professor. He was, really kind of a mentor to me kind of through the rest of my studies. And I think was probably influential in my kind of choosing that. I mean, I kind of looked into engineering, but I was terrible at math. Calculus was no fun,
Yeah.
and English, but then I liked reading novels. I didn't like reading literary criticism so much. Um,
Hmm.
Although now I find it more interesting. But um,
When I was in college, I really struggled between do I want to do like take classes and go in a career field of like activities that I like, that are like fun for me.
mhm,
And I ultimately decided that that wasn't going to be enough. Like I needed something that felt like fulfilling,
mhm,
that my like purpose in the world was bigger than just like designing cool houses or something. I was thinking about doing
mhm,
architecture because I was good at math. I mean, I am good at math, but I was good at math and I was good at like spatial design and
mhm,
was really interested in structures, and that is both like the aesthetic and functionality of it, but it didn't feel like enough for
mhm,
me. And so I went down a career path where I make less money,
mhm,
and but it just feels like more in alignment with this like inner purpose that I have in life.
mhm.
And I'm wondering how much that resonate, like whether that's true for you too. Like I would
Yeah.
just imagine that if you are someone who's drawn to like big picture thinking and you've done a lot of work on with like activism and justice issues, that there's like some kind of like inner fire that like fuels you in some way.
Um, Well, I mean, it is kind of, I mean, I guess I would say that it's the sort of torn between enjoying the theory, but sort of feeling responsible to put it into practice.
Hmm.
Um, I think probably if I just kind of went with my own inclinations, I would probably be in an ivory tower somewhere. But the thing is, I was never interested in politics, I think, until I became interested in environmental theology. I became interested in
Mm.
environmental theology because it was just intriguing as a totally a nearly unexplored field,
Hmm.
and just had a lot of, so it was kind of like you could be a pioneer in thinking about these things.
I think that says a lot about you.
But it also seems so blindingly obvious that, yeah, if God created the world, then obviously the world has some sort of religious meaning,
Yeah.
including the parts that don't have anything to do with humans. Um, but obviously, I couldn't get involved in thinking about those things without sort of realizing the dire straits that the planet is in, how it's impacting people, how it's connected to injustice and the domination of various political and economic structures.
Hmm.
um, and um, so that's made it kind of you know impossible for me to regard it purely as an academic exercise. um, and and just for happenstance, I just kind of wound up working for an environmental education institute, but doing it in the outreach program. And
Hmm.
so I was able to do some research and writing, but um, had to do a lot more terms of, what can churches do practically, or what's the public policy
Hmm.
uh, implications of that. And then, went from that to working with the Wisconsin Council of Churches, which is still kind of at the intersection of theology and politics,
Hmm.
and public life, more broadly speaking, but involving a much wider range of issues.
So, excluding what you do right now, what's the best job you ever had? What would you want to, if you had to do a job over again, which one would you do?
Oh,
You could also say like bussing tables when you were 16, or like I worked at a books. There was like a giant thrift store in my hometown, and it had a section that just had books in it. And all I had to do all day was just like organize books.
oh, I never did that, but I would love to do that. My daughter
It's
always
nice.
tells me I should go work for a bookstore.
Yeah.
She thinks I would be happy there. Um,
Is she right?
yeah, I think I would. Except that it's not um, also not a lucrative and not a very secure field.
No.
And it's a little, who knows, but it's a little late now.
Yeah, I got paid $8 an hour, so I
Yeah.
don't recommend it.
But um, I mean, I guess, apart from the work I'm doing now, or the kind of work I do now, for some reason, I'm thinking of a summer where I had a job laying sod.
Hmm.
And I just somehow remember that was enjoyable. I think because it was sort of very simple, very earthy, and you could really see the
Your
result.
progress? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, that's kind of the downside of the sort of work I'm doing now and have been doing, but um, that you don't necessarily see obvious fruits,
Yeah.
and you don't always know kind of what the impact. But when you see a lawn of dirt turn into a green lawn, you've
Yeah,
actually
it's
really
extremely satisfying.
right. Yes. And
Yeah.
just
My favorite
rolling the sod out was just kind of fun in itself.
my favorite job in a house is shoveling snow, because similarly you're like, oh, there's a lot of snow, now it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Or dusting, when there's enough dust that you can tell that it's dusty.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, yeah, it's very
Yeah.
satisfying. I
Yeah.
agree.
I just
So what, yeah.
I prefer the sorts of things where it makes sort of a permanent difference. It's the stuff
Instead of
that,
shoveling where you just have to come out again in a
right,
few
you
hours.
have to do it again. The dishes you have to do again. The dusting you
Yeah.
have to do again. But if I organize part of the basement, then it's sort of like it's done and I can see it kind of
Mm,
there.
okay. So you're like more of like a project person than like a task person? Is that a good way of describing it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, at least um, I hadn't really thought of it that way, but I guess if a project means that you kind of come out with something palpable, something concrete at the end, I think that would be true.
Hmm.